Riding into the sunset. The week after the statewides was pretty odd. First of all, it was Tad's last week of school. The teachers arranged for him to get his yearbook early, and that Friday was like his own personal senior week. Seriously, there was a line at our lunch table of people who desperately wanted to sign Tad's book. When everybody was finally gone, Lindsay said, "Wow, Tad, people are really going to miss you. I mean, until September." Tad laughed. "Yeah, it's amazing what a little fame and a fatal disease will do for a guy's popularity rating." Well, at least the glory wasn't giving him a swelled head. Another strange thing was that I suddenly had some free time. After months of extra math classes, tutoring, and being grounded, I almost didn't know what to do with myself. I rode my bike a lot, of course. I had told so many people about my big ride that I needed to make sure I'd actually be able to go that far without having a heart attack. And with 2 weeks to go, it was crunch time. I did 25 miles a day on the weekend, then alternated between doing 10 fast miles and 20 slower miles every other weekday. But even averaging over an hour a day on my bike still left a lot of time. I felt like I was going crazy. I was all excited about Stephen coming home, but every nerve in my body was screaming with alarm about Tad's transplant. So on Tuesday, I did what any red blooded American boy would do. I did my training miles really fast, took a shower, put on a collared shirt, and biked over to Lindsay's house. She answered the door looking beautiful in her Angels jersey. Sadly, her team was in first place, but my beloved Yankees were off to a slow start, and she was having fun rubbing it in. "Hi," she said. "I'm just enjoying the thrill of a victorious new season. What are you up to?" "Well," I said, "the testing is over." And she gave me a puzzled look. "And I'm not grounded anymore." She still just looked at me. All of a sudden, my heart was pounding and my palms were practically dripping with sweat. Amazing how I could ride a bike 20 miles without getting out of breath, but a little old talk with this girl practically put me in the intensive care unit. "And you said you were only breaking up with me until after the tests, right?" She smiled. "So what are you trying to say?" I made myself look right into Lindsay's eyes. "So I'm wondering if you still have that mistletoe lying around somewhere." She didn't, but we made do without it. The week went by. Tad had his last day of celebrity, and then it was the weekend before Tad's hospitalization would begin. He was under strict orders to stay in his house, and he couldn't see anyone except his parents and his sister. If he got sick, it would be a disaster, so I understood the deal. We IM'd a lot, which had always been Tad's favorite form of communication anyway. But I felt weird not talking to him before the transplant, so when Sunday night rolled around, I called him on the phone. "Dude," I said, "Dude, how are you?" "I'm feeling rather cancerous today, thanks. And how are you, Jeff? Ready for the big ride next weekend?" "I think so. You know, it's NBD, right? All I have to do is climb on and keep pedaling." "I know, but just in case you need some inspiration, I'll be mailing you a package this week. Just promise me you won't open it until the day of the race, okay?" "Okay. What's in it?" "Well, DA, would I make you promise not to open it if I wanted you to know ahead of time?" "Oh, good point. Listen, Tad, I just wanted to tell you Oh, good Lord, Jeff, don't go getting all emotional on me. I've been getting it from my mom, my dad, my sister, the freaking mailman. I don't need it from you, too. All I ask is that you promise me one thing." "What?" "Just water the plants for me while I'm gone, all right?" "You don't have plants, Tad." "I know. I just always wanted to say that." "Isn't there anything I can really do?" "Well, you could check on Yvonne when she gets home from the hospital. Maybe play a game with her. She likes Pretty Pretty Princess. Oh, and you could promise me you'll kick butt in high school." "Tad, what are you talking about? You'll be there when I get to high school. We're going to go up there and kick butt to get. You asked what you could do for me, right? So I told you. If, for some odd reason, I don't happen to be around, just do what I asked, all right?" I swallowed. My throat felt 2 sizes too small. "All right. Good. Now I have to go get some beauty sleep. Wouldn't want to scare the radiologist or anything. Peace out, Cub Scout." Tad, I stopped talking when I realized I was speaking to the dial tone. On Tuesday, Tad's package arrived. It was about the size of a box of tissues, and when I shook it, it felt kind of fluffy. I was dying to know what was in there, but I knew that if I peeked, Tad would ask me about it later, and I'd tell him the truth. So I waited. Somehow the week passed. I tried not to picture what was going on during Tad's 3 days of high-intensity chemo and radiation, or what was going through Yvonne's head as the doctors prepared to stick needles into her hip bones and take out more than a quart of marrow. I couldn't imagine what it would feel like to be asked to save your brother's life twice. On Saturday, the actual day of the surgery, I prayed all day. I wished I could burn off some of the nervous energy by going biking, but I never got get on my bike the day before the big ride. My parents tried to distract me, and Lindsay even called to ask if I wanted to go to a movie or something, but it seemed wrong to go around having fun while Tad was in the middle of getting his bone marrow transplant. I knew he probably would have said, "Go party, Jeff." Listen, if you were the one in the hospital, I wouldn't be sitting around moping in the window like an abandoned puppy. I'd be out in the streets, living large with my entourage. But I also knew he would have been lying. On the morning of the ride, I showered, ate breakfast, and rushed through a long series of stretching exercises my physical therapist gave me when I was in 6th grade. Then my dad wished me luck as I pumped up my tires, checked for my cell phone and emergency money, snapped my water bottle filled with Gatorade into place, and put my bike on the rack behind our minivan. Just as my mom came out to the garage to spray me with about a gallon of sunscreen and drive me to the starting line, I realized I hadn't opened the package. I zoomed back upstairs, ripped into the bubble mailer, and pulled out an iPod and a pair of pull-ups, like the ones toddlers wear during potty training. There was a post-it note written in Tad's nearly unreadable scrawl on the front of the pull-ups. "All right, Jeffy, here are some big boy pants. Put 'em on and crank out 50 miles for me. By the way, the iPod only has one playlist on it. Press play when you leave the starting line, okay?" I took the iPod and went back downstairs. Mom and I didn't talk in the car. I mean, she tried, but I just wasn't in the mood. I have to say, Mom's always been pretty good at knowing when not to say anything. Of course, once we got to the park where the starting point was, she did hug me and make me promise I'd call her after the first lap, and kiss me on the hair just below the helmet, behind my left ear. But I looked around really fast and I didn't think anybody had seen. So that was kind of all right. I said hi to the various people I recognized from past rides. When I'd started doing this event in 6th grade, Mom had made a couple of old guys promise they'd watch me, but this year at the starting line, she just made a little call me sign with one hand and sat down to watch me go. The other 2 times I'd done this, when I was doing only one lap, I'd be gone zipping out of the gate at top speed. But I knew if I was going to do the loop twice, it would be smarter to pace myself. I eased my way up through the gears until I slipped into a comfortable cadence. Then I started the iPod. The very first song was an oldie from Eric Clapton called "Tears in Heaven." "Would you know my name if I saw you in heaven? Would it be the same if I saw you in heaven?" I knew immediately what Tad was doing to me. It was classic Tad. He had always collected morbidly depressing songs, and obviously he thought it would be funny to make me listen to them during the ride. The next one, as I rode in the middle of the pack through town, was by My Chemical Romance. The song was called "Cancer." "That if you say goodbye today, I'd ask you to be true, 'cause the hardest part of this is leaving you." Tad and I had laughed at the drama of that song a million times, but it put a lump in my throat now. I kept pedaling and got through the song. Track 3 started just as I started the long downhill ride to cross the Free Bridge into Easton, Pennsylvania. It was another oldie, Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. "Didn't mean to make you cry. If I'm not back again this time tomorrow, carry on, as nothing really matters." Oh, geez. As I turned with the pack to go over the bridge, I could actually feel tears welling up in my eyes. Then, to my complete horror, I realized there was a pack of girls waving to me from the middle of the bridge. I wiped my eyes frantically on the front of my high-tech, moisture-wicking, shiny bike shirt and saw that Brianna Slack was one of them. So was Lindsay. They waved and cheered me on and held up a big sign that read, "Go, Jeff, make it 50 for Tad." I passed them just as the next song came on. "Na na na na, na 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 na, hey, 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 goodbye." Frickin' Tad. We rode through Easton and along an old railroad right of way by the Delaware for about an hour before looping back around. At the end of the first lap, I noticed that the music had ended. I also noticed that my legs were starting to cramp up, so I drank some Gatorade. That helped, but it also made me realize I was starving, so I pulled over, called my mom to tell her I was fine, and got a hot dog at the stand by the side of the highway. That made me fall pretty far back behind the pack, but I knew I'd catch them on the downhill back to the river. I jumped back on my bike and steered with one hand as I wolfed down the hot dog in about 3 bites. I forced myself to chew each one really well. I didn't want to ruin the ride by choking to death. Then I cranked up to full speed and got caught up over the next 2 miles or so. As I crossed the Free Bridge, I was relieved to see that the girls weren't there anymore. It was my favorite part of a long ride, when you're already tired and crampy, but you're more than halfway done. And it would be so easy to tumble off your bike into the grass and quit, but you know you won't. I wish I could remember now what I was thinking during those next 2 hours, because they were the last good hours I was going to have for a long time. But nobody ever tells you in advance when you should concentrate on the good times. That's why you're supposed to try to do it every day. I know, Tad would barf, but it's true anyway. By the time we made the last big sweeping turn into the hill that leads to the end of the route, I was in a great mood. The sun was shining, the breeze was great, and I felt like I had really done something important and visible to support Tad. My legs weren't even hurting anymore. I almost felt like I could go around again if I wanted to. I cranked through the gears and really poured on the speed as the end came into sight. I looked around to see whether anyone was waiting for me. At first, I could just make out our minivan in the shade of a tree. Then I saw the outline of my mother leaning against the driver's side door. I think she saw me just as I saw her because she stood up straight, stepped out of the shadows, and started walking over to the finish line. Maybe 20 feet before I crossed the line, I realized she was crying. Graduation. Well, for what it's worth, I'm here. I never knew it was possible to feel so numb on such a big day. I'm sitting in my hot, sticky gown, trying to keep my big, stupid-looking square hat from tilting and sliding off my head completely. It doesn't help that the metal folding chair I'm on has been baking in the sun for hours. I stare at the sweat-drenched neck pimples of the kid in front of me, but really I'm not looking at anything. More specifically, I'm not looking around for Lindsay, who's only about 7 seats away to my right. I'd be willing to bet $1,000,000 that she's looking at me, hoping I will glance over there so she can attempt to make me smile. I'm also not looking around for my mom and dad. They're somewhere in the bleachers of the football field, and I know they're reasonably proud of me. While I'm at it, I'm not looking around for Steven. If I really wanted to find him, I could just turn around and look for Annette's frizzy hair. He's the guy right next to her holding her hand, but he's probably giving me the concerned big brother look, and I don't want him to get sick of consoling me and hop on another airplane. If I were feeling anything at all, I'd be glad he's here. He came home a couple of weeks early. Luckily, Mom had wasted no time in getting his dark suit to the cleaners. Suddenly, that thing has been getting a lot of use. Speaking of which, I'm not looking around for Tad. His parents are there, and so is Yvonne. Yesterday, my mother made me stop over at their house with a platter of sandwiches. While I was there, Mrs. Ibsen sat me down at the kitchen table and asked me to do something special for Tad today. I said I would do it. She hugged me and cried. You're probably wondering what happened with the testing and everything, right? It's pretty ironic, actually. I passed both the English and the math, but the test scores aren't going to count for anything. It turns out that the answer key to the English was all messed up, and when the state auditors started investigating, they found significant irregularities in the way the scorers were trained too. The news channels were all over the story, and the local station even ran a whole story about Tad's role in stirring up public awareness of what the anchorman referred to as testing run amok. In the words of the editorial that ran in yesterday's paper, how can the powers that be use this deeply flawed instrument to decide the fate of our children? Interestingly, Miss Palma told our class that at least one blogger is saying that the governor's girlfriend is on the board of the company that administered the exams. If that's true, she said that heads will really roll when the state senate has its session in September. Big whoop. Tad would have loved this whole scandal, but it's not like he's around to see it. The day after his transplant, just as I started my big ride, Tad went into sudden liver failure. His mom said it must have been something called acute graft versus host disease. She told me the doctors hooked him up to every machine in the place, but it was no use. My best friend's heart stopped at 10:32 a.m., probably while I was stopping halfway through my ride to grab a hot dog. It wasn't even a good hot dog. The kid next to me grabs my arm and yanks upward. Oh geez, our whole row is standing. It seems I've missed all of the speeches, and it's time to walk across the stage. One by one, our names are called. Mr. Lorenzano is reading the names, and his voice sounds a little bit funny as he clears his throat and says, "And now, accepting both his own diploma and the one earned by our departed friend Thaddeus Ibsen, Jeffrey Alper." Our departed friend. If he heard that one, Tad would have been rolling on the floor, but I'm not. I force my feet to start moving. As I limp up the aisle, I notice that the entire stadium is eerily silent. My heart is pounding, and my lame foot feels like it has 3 bricks strapped to it, but I make it to the steps at the edge of the stage. I concentrate on lifting each foot as high as I can on the stairs. This would be a bad time for a faceplant. I glance to my left and almost trip. Every single person, student, parent, teacher, in sight is standing up, and they're all looking right at me. I stop. I can't do this. It's only a few more feet to where the assistant principal is standing, waiting to hand me the diplomas and shake my hand. But I'm paralyzed. Tad is gone. Tad is gone. And then Miss Palma steps forward from the teacher's line. She walks to me, puts one hand on my shoulder, and whispers, "This is your beau guest, Jeffrey. You can do it." And very gently she pushes me forward. My feet start moving again. With each step, I raise my knee and put some glide into my stride. I force my shoulders back. I keep my chin up. I can also almost hear Tad say, "Put on your big boy pants, DA." I have to keep moving. After all, I'm walking for two. Perpetual care. I'm sitting in the grass talking with my best friend Tad. It's the morning before the first day of high school, and I have a lot to tell him. I've been riding my bike out here every week this summer because even though I could talk to Tad anywhere, this is the one place I can always hear his voice answering me. My parents have been really, really worried about me. So has Stephen. So has Lindsay. Who am I kidding? So has everybody. I sneeze. Yvonne likes to leave wildflowers right at the base of the headstone. Apparently, I am allergic to wildflowers. There's just so much about this that Tad would find amusing. I've been trying really hard to laugh at the things that would have made him laugh. Sometimes, just in the last week or two, I can even smile without doing it on purpose. So, Brother Thaddeus, we meet again. Hey, have a seat. Make yourself at home. I know it ain't fancy, but you can't beat the view, at least from the upstairs level. You're not going to believe what I saw in the paper today. The state Senate proposed a new law. No school shall use a standardized test as the sole criterion for the promotion or retention of individual students. Isn't that amazing? Dad says he thinks this bill might get passed. Mom says you really kicked, well, you know. She even used that word. I almost had a heart attack and died. Oh God, that sounds horrible. Meh. You want horrible? You should hear the old guy on my left when he snores. And another thing, I got my schedule in the mail and they put me in grade level regular math. I've never been in grade level regular math before. Yeah, we've all been going through some changes lately. My dad's thrilled. I told him it's because of the question he helped me with on the night before the statewides, but he said, "No, buddy, we have your friend Tad to thank. I swear, since your funeral, he's been practically displaying emotion. I'm a miracle worker. No offense, but your dad could have found out how great I am a lot sooner if he had just asked your mom." And Stephen, too. I got into it with him one night 2 weeks ago because I told him everything was pointless. He asked me what I was talking about, and I went completely ballistic. I told him your death was stupid and pointless. He said, "But it wasn't. Tad helped you get to high school, and he made tons of people all across New Jersey stop and think." Well, that was a first. I still can't believe I imagined to get people in New Jersey to think. I snort. I told him that it was pointless of him to go to Africa and desert everybody if he was just going to come back anyway. He said, "No, Jeff, it would have been pointless if I hadn't come back, but I did." I said, "So why'd you go?" He gave me this whole lecture about that girl Samantha who died when I was in the hospital. I never knew this, but she made him swear he'd always take care of me. I think the exact words were, "Stay with your brother, Stephen." I said, "So that's why you left for Africa? Because a dead girl told you not to? Very nice." He looked away for a while and then said, "No, Jeff, I left for Africa because I stopped listening to her. Now I'm listening again, dork." Then he put his arm around me. Ugh. I know. I noticed then that the tears are dripping down my face and onto the front of my John Lennon shirt. Tad loved John Lennon. Sorry I'm getting all emotional. Ever since May, I've been kind of a wuss. Kind of a wuss? Kind of a wuss? Dude, you are like the Duke of Wussendorf, the Earl of Wussheim. In fact, wherever wusses meet and mingle, your name is whispered in hushed, reverent tones. Now wipe your nose on Mr. Lennon. Go ahead. I know for a fact he won't feel it. I wipe my nose. Then I just sit there and breathe in the allergy-inducing wildflower air for a while. When I feel calm again, I say, "I've been going over to your house and playing with, the ERC. Yvonne. Right, Yvonne. You wouldn't believe how much she misses you. But you know what? She's a cool little kid. I'm teaching her to ride a two-wheeler. She wants to do the cancer ride with me next year. Hey, did you know when she smiles really big, her eyes look like yours?" Oh, barf. But, Jeff, thanks. No problem. I sit some more. There's just so much flowing through me. It happens every time I come here, just after I filled myself up on Tad's biting comments and just before my butt finishes getting permanently numb. As corny as it might sound, I think about the meaning of life. I felt lost a lot of the time this summer, but at the end of these visits, I know that Dr. Galley is right, that a big part of why we're here is to support the people around us. I know that Stephen is right, that journeys aren't pointless if they come with a round-trip ticket. And I know that even through all the horrible things that happened to Tad in his three bouts of cancer, Tad's life wasn't pointless. I know I'll forget about all of this later, or it sometimes won't seem as perfectly real and true as it does right now, but then I'll come back. Tad isn't going anywhere. He's right with me in this clearing on the edge of a little town by the Delaware River, and he's right with me in the center of my chest. So, on this last morning before high school, I think it through one more time. And at least for a moment, I know that the purpose is to keep moving forward, to stick with the people you love, even when they push you away, even when they're hurting, and especially when you're hurting. I hear a twig break at the end of Tad's row. I turn, and Lindsay is there, walking up the path next to her brand new street bike. She puts down the kickstand so her bike is right next to mine, takes off her helmet, shakes out her hair, and walks over. She points to a new yellow sticker on the upper right corner of Tad's headstone and asks, "What's that?" I know the answer because I just asked Mrs. Ibsen the same question 2 days ago. I tell Lindsay that it's a perpetual care sticker. It tells the cemetery staff to keep the grave looking nice forever. Forever. A chill shoots down my back. Perpetual care, huh? I nod. How do you know I was here? I ask. I went to your house first. Your parents' cars weren't in front, but your brother answered the door. Then Annette popped up behind him wearing a bathrobe. I was pretty embarrassed, but they seemed to be cool with it. Lindsay blushes and continues. Anyway, Stephen told me where you were. Are you okay? Fine, I say, smoothing the drenched front of my shirt. She smiles then, just a little hesitant smile. I think it must be hard for her to understand why I keep coming here. Alrighty, Jeff. Do you want to go for a ride? I'm a little nervous about tomorrow. I stand up and hug my girlfriend. Then she takes my hand and leads me back to the path.